Welcome, my beautiful souls, to another edition of the Soul Surgery Collective reading, my beautiful souls. So, we're going to dive right in and see what is the focus for this week. You know, we always choose a Kemetic deity card that represents some sort of faculty within ourselves, which will be here on the left, and then we look on the astrology of what's going on in the here and now currently, and then we're going to choose an action card. So this week we've still got the Kemetic deck, the Auset Oracle. We have an astrology deck, which I forgot the name of the actual deck, my beautiful souls, but it will be in the description. And then we've got the Wild Unknown Archetypal Oracle deck, which is going to look at what actions we should be taking in the here and now, my beautiful soul. So let's go in. What do we have? Ooh, Horus Baraki, the Sacred Union. So there's two concepts being fused here, my beautiful souls. We've got the concept of Horus, or the concept of Haru. Horus is the Greek name, which represents number 6 on the tree of life. It's the central coordinator, Haru is. He is the will. It represents freedom. It is the human's will. So there is a collective, no, there is a supreme intelligence. So you could call that the will of the gods, right? But that will was incarnated or shared with every individual or living thing on the earth in the form of consciousness, whether that is through animals representing their instincts, or through plants, meaning the matrix within the plant which they follow, or for the human, their intuition, right? So we have the ability to tap back into that, but then we have our own will, which gives us the sense of individuality, a sense of being separate from the collective, or being standing as an individual like within the collective. But again, the word individual is also misleading because it's indivisible duality. So something that is cannot be separated from something else, but is different from something else, yin and yang, my beautiful souls, right? So Haru represents a stage or an ability to face our programming, right? That's what Haru's actual, or that's the purpose of the will. The will is a creator, right? So the will is an energy force that moves, not an energy force, is a force of power that moves energy, right? And energy takes on the shape of the consciousness. There's obviously many different stages to this, especially with the essence of visualization or crystallization that happens, my beautiful souls. But Horus Baraki is basically, the Baraki bolt is the bolt of Ra, the life force, right? So when we're talking about a sacred union, this could be seen as a union between your thoughts, your ideas, your intentions, right? Now penetrating, just as you would see the semen would penetrate the womb, right? And then life will materialize. So in order for this to happen, the will has to be strong, just like the sperm that gets through, right? The one that gets through is stronger than the rest, right? Faster than the rest, right? This is like, that's, I think they call it like a spermazonal side aspect of the universe, right? The will is the impregnating dynamic where the energy is seen as the womb, my beautiful soul. So this is where you get the concept of male female, or the concept of hermaphrodite, because you've got Hermes being will and Aphrodite being the concept of love, my beautiful souls. So this is, if your will is weakened, right, this is where we fall into habits, patterns, anxiety, depression. We repeat the program on loop over and over again, right? So Haru gives us that ability to break that programming. That's what it's like. It's the awareness. That's how it's the birth of the awareness, the birth of you now being able to take control of your life and saying, nope, I'm no longer going to do this. So there are ways to strengthen your will, which means ignoring the programming. This is the easiest thing to do. We call it menab. It's to ignore the impulses as they manifest within you, so you don't actually respond, my beautiful soul. So that's one side. Then you've got the other aspect of the life force itself might be weak, right? To be able to, so if you have an intention, and your intention is to stop doing something, to break an addiction, you need energy and you need power in order to enable you to resist or ignore the impulses. And that's where the life force is comes into play in that on that level, but it also comes into play in the sense that it is the actual energies that you're materializing or attracting to you to materialize, right? So that can be weakened, right? And how do we weaken the life force? Again, through false identity, through doubts, through fear, through carrying trauma, my beautiful souls, through isolation, through even non-stimulus of the libido, right? We could be over compensating, so we're working and burning ourselves out, we're not getting enough sleep, we're not eating the right food, right? All of these things will weaken. So this is when we would say that we have a weak power and then a weakened will. So this is no such thing as will power. So this is what it's saying. Haru Berkeley, the sacred union, is being able to strengthen the will and strengthen the life force by respecting the natural life cycles of the life force energy, my beautiful souls. So that is definitely a focus. This is the way that there are a number of different aspects that can come into play with this, but I am going to keep it there for the time being, and we'll see as we go along. Interesting. Nephis, which is also another name for Het Haru, which again comes under the Venus energy. So if we looked at Haru, he would represent the energy of Leo, the sun, because of the sun's representation. Haru represents, his name means the sun rising, right? Or the horizon, or rising above the horizon, right? My beautiful, is also connected to the word hero also, right? The gods, the Kabbalistic or the Canaanite gods would be Mikael, I think Tipareth and Shango, right? If you're into Yoruba also, my beautiful souls, all of those deities or gods represent this aspect of your will, which we just spoke about. So now we've got soul healing. So I would advise you to check out my video that I did, which was asking about what is spiritual awakening, right? Because it's going to break down a certain aspect, because Nephis represents number 7 on the tree of life, right? This is Het Haru. Het Haru represents the house of Haru. So it's the storehouse of the life force. It's the ability to manipulate the life force to do your bidding, right? But this is also, on the flip side, the energy or the part of ourselves that relives our trauma. So hence the healing part. Only when she presents in this format is when someone is carrying the blueprint of trauma, and the blueprint of trauma has now hijacked their visualization or their imagination, and now this is now how they see their self. You're affirming yourself through the limitations of your trauma, my beautiful souls. So this is where the soul healing has to come in. If you know the story of Het Haru, she was married to Sebek, which is the left side of our brain, where she represents the right side of our brain, the feminine side, the holistic visual side, where Sebek is the verbal side, segregative side, the analytical side. So her partner was the one who murdered Usar, attacked the one God, or that one dynamic within yourself, that one consciousness. So what it's actually saying is that when she was married to this segregative thinking, this selfishness, this fearful based personality, ego driven self, she couldn't reproduce. She couldn't experience life to her. She couldn't experience joy. And she, as Venus, represents joy, love, creativity. But under the energy of the ego and the personality, she was imprisoned in a sense. So she had to leave that energy, and she was able to consume with the god Osar, which represents unlimitedness, infiniteness, connection to all things, a oneness, abundance, all knowing. When she was able to connect to that, she was able to bring forth a child. And this child was called Ampu, right? Which also links with a higher octave of this number 8, Sebekian Set energy, right? Which is also astrologically seen as Mercury. So if Set is representing in the trickster side of Mercury, the higher side or higher octave of that, which you could say is like a Jupiter energy in a sense, is represented through the god Anubis, Ampu. So it's the bridge between your consciousness, your ego, and your ability to tap into your intuition, which is the will of God, which is all knowing, because it is one with all things, my beautiful souls. So this is telling me that your will is somewhat going through a process of detoxification. It's like a phoenix mode. It's like your identity and how you see yourself. Between number 7 and number 6 on the tree of life is the death card, right? And the death card represents a form of transformation, right? The caterpillar becoming the butterfly. It's that scorpionic energy, right? And it demands that we go through the depths of ourselves, the shadows of ourselves, in order to release the light, my beautiful soul. So step into the light. We are black suns at the moment, right, shining within the darkness. But it's like the darkness needs the sun, the light needs to, the light of a realization, the light of awareness, right? The light of realigning our identity back to something that's infinite and not to the limitation of our personality, because the personality has to conform to political agenda, religious agenda, cultural agenda, all of these things. So this is telling me that there is a defect, right, when it comes to the things that we are trying to manifest. We might be using things like love, passion, addictions, even overworking, to what's the word, to distract us away from this energy that we're feeling, like this low self-esteem. So it's almost saying that the way that we live, the things that we indulge in, the partying, the sexing, all of this stuff here is nothing but us basically trying to feel good, because we have an inner calling to reconnect back to the universe, right? But what's blocking us is this false image that we are this person or that person. I need to be this, I need to be that, and blah, blah, blah. So that's the energy of what we're working with, my beautiful souls, right? Let's go in and see what's going on the mundane. What do we have? Ooh, look at that 7th house, relationships, my beautiful souls. So yeah, the 7th house is relationships. It's the descendant. It represents, or it wants us to focus on, or this lesson or how we shape our will is going to come through the partnerships and relationships that we form. So that is personal relationships, the ones that you are willing to sacrifice for or invest into, or these are business partnerships, right? In the sense of, yeah, well, the people that you work with basically to build something, right? And the kind of relationships that you have. And then we've got the Virgo energy there. So I'm thinking that Virgo is the sign of service, but sometimes we get confused with service, and what happens is that we become more servants, right? Meaning that instead of us materializing our true needs or putting in boundaries, right, what we're doing is we're overcompensating, we're giving too much again, right? Someone is limiting their scope. So an example would be, if Virgo is the sign of service, the 7th house is relationships. If Virgo is the sign of service and the sign of health, right? What does that mean? It means that the way that you offer, the things that you do, needs to be able to bring some form of clarity or some sort of order or some sort of healing, right? So we can't be overworking, we can't be overgiving if that leaves us depleted. So there's something to do with the relationships that we're in or that we're forming, right? That might need to be changed. You can see with this Virgo, you've got the wheat, like the hands trying to remove the chaff from the wheat, my beautiful souls, right? So Virgo does bring a sense of healing, but it also brings a sense of perfection, right? This perfection may also be a problem that's affecting this sacred union. So you're seeing yourself through a very materialistic worldview, right? And that worldview is Virgoian in an aspect, which is very nitpicky and perfection based. So you're either looking at the world or your relationships and you're ripping them apart because you think that they're not perfect, they don't match up to you. But is that true, or is this just you're trying to control your relationships because there's a fear in you. There's some sort of insecurity within yourself that is triggered by these relationships or these connections. So what should really happen is that these relationships and connections should help you to grow and step into your true self, right? And one of that true self might be putting in boundaries, maybe being very specific about the way you can offer or turn up, right? And not overstretching yourself or going into realms that don't really concern you, or finding yourself attached and needy, right, my beautiful souls, because that now will cause problems where you're attached to a situation which you should let go. And this is what I find with a lot of Virgos get into relationships early because of this misunderstanding of the energy to provide a service comes from an understanding of whom you are, what you are, knowing your traits, working on your talents and your traits, and then offering it to people, creating a little bit of money, creating stability, right? None of that is about making you a slave. Virgo normally rules over the sixth house, which is the house of the slave, my beautiful souls. So are you a slave to your own form of perfection, of what perfection looks like, which means you're restricted? This would need balancing with Piscean energy, which will dissolve all boundaries and all, meaning that you don't feel free to express it from your true self or your true essence or your true needs. You're always trying to meet somebody else's needs. Seventh house again is linked to Libra's energy, which is all about balance. And sometimes you can understand too much, yeah, but understanding too much will flip the scale. So let's see, my beautiful souls. Anything else? Oh, see, look there. We've got the empty room again, right? So fitting. We have built a life based on a false identity. That identity has taken up a lot of space in our lives, in our mindset, in the way that we think, the things that we will try to achieve. It's like they say, especially like in England, the tax is so high, right? So what that does to people who are workers, right, is that it actually prevents them from wanting more. So let's say that, if you go over £50,000, you're going to get taxed a certain amount of money, right? But then you need to be earning more than £50,000 in order to raise your family or live a certain type of lifestyle. But you won't maybe take your business and expand it, or you won't apply for a new job that brings you over that threshold or that bracket, simply because you don't want to be paying that additional tax. And why should you? Why should, when we look on the roads and you see that your money is not being utilized the best that it can, right? And the cost of living is going up and all this madness. So the point is that you realize there's an imbalance, my beautiful souls. And this is what this empty room in an essence is talking about, is that if you have an image and then you fit into that skin, then that's all you would ever be, right? So don't limit yourself. This is a time, the sacred union is a time of release, right? It's like a tower moment, breaking the hardness of societal expectations and just be like, yeah, become light. Like, it's almost like you need to fly, but you have the wings, but you're too heavy. So you need to drop the weight. Do you know what I'm saying, my beautiful souls? That's what the empty room is. And I think this is where this healing's coming from. Because if it is about relationships, most people are products of broken relationships and they haven't healed their baggage. And because you haven't healed your baggage, you're now attracting another relationship, forming an attachment. Again, all of this is just limitation. Your lack of self-worth or lack of knowing your divinity is kind of making you settle in relationships that are below you, or I can't even say below you, because if they're attracted to you, if you're attracting these relationships, then there's a lesson that you obviously still need to learn, which is fine. There's no judgment here. It's just about acknowledgement. It's like this empty room. You can see that the source, or what they would call God in its truest essence in ancient Kemet, would be Amin, which I'll say Amen, right? And Amin is imperceptible because it has no form. And because it has no form, there is peace. There is no emotion, right? Because for there to be emotion and things, there has to be a movement of the energies, and the consciousness has to have an intention. But in the source's true sense, right, or the creator's true sense, this stillness or this peacefulness or this empty room, this would be like the Nu, they would call it the primordial waters of Nu, right? It's like your potter's clay. You got the clay so that you can create any kind of ceramic or any kind of, what do you call those things? Vases or jars. So it's from this non-thing, not nothing, no thing. So from coming from a place of no, of imperceptibility, of no form, of formlessness, you can take all forms. So this gives you this very mutable, watery nature. So we can change our personalities and our behaviors. Transcendence. Geez, there's the riddle. Gee. Interesting dynamic or focus, right? What is the riddle? The riddle, I can look on this in two ways. Sometimes we can get ourselves knotted up trying to make sense of all the situations we've gone through, but we're trying to make sense of these situations through the limited view of our personality. It's not going to happen. We're only going to get confusion, and there might be energies of blame, there might be energies of anger and vengeance, all of that, which means we're looking at the situation from the wrong lens. What we should be doing, instead of looking at it through the personality of our lower vibrational energy, our defensive energy, we should be looking at it through the principle of Ma'at, right? Ma'at means that divine order, that interconnection and interrelation of all things. Self cannot be against self. So what we should be looking at is that I exist. Why do I exist? What is the vibrations? What do I attract? What kind of relationships am I entertaining or not entertaining, and why? Because everything is orchestrated as a dance of remembrance. So the people that you meet, friend or foes, have their part to play, and this was your divine contract that you agreed to, my beautiful souls. So that's the realization, is that you agreed to do this dance, to come to this realization. So there cannot be no enemies. The enemies were chosen, like your family was chosen. There is a level, your free will is the free to be able to follow the natural universal harmony and order of things. It isn't so you can live in fantasy and illusion. You have to bear the consequences of that, because that's the kind of universe we live in, cause and effect, my beautiful souls. So every effect has a cause, and every cause has an effect. Kaboom! So the riddle, right, is actually working out in this sense, yeah, the reasoning behind some of these relationships that you're going into, or these situations you're running from. My beautiful, so it can work both ways, right? That's what the riddle really means. There is something very divine and mystic and very, I don't know, it's going to be very uplifting for you as an individual when you start to tap in and ask those questions about your own divinity. The universe ain't against you. God is not against you, right? It's people are just unripe souls. So they don't even know the divinity within their selves. So they more vibrate with the lower vibrational self. So that's why I always say this devil energy, we don't have to fear, because it's just people broken, my beautiful souls. So you have to decide if you want to be the broken person, the devil, or if you want to be a person that's elevated, that's transcended. That would be your angelic self or your divine self, right? But one and the light and the dark are one and the same, my beautiful souls. So that is the actual riddle. The riddle isn't so that you can be confused. We put ourselves in an unnecessary riddle because we're trying to fit in. I say this all the time, right? Society has told you that you have to become this person or that person because that's what's easy to control. That's what's easy to manipulate and exploit. But when people stand in their individual form, it's like all these scattered pieces that we can't pull together. But when we create a system that creates politics and religions and all of these are just bubbles and brackets that we can use to put people against each other. Also very divisive, my beautiful soul. So we're constantly looking at who's right and who's wrong. That is not the energy of Ma'at. Yeah, everything has a purpose, right? And everything is about equilibrium, balance. Yeah, so that's something that we have to remember. Stop persecuting others and stop persecuting ourselves, right? For living or experiencing, right? No situation has to be a failure. Everything can be a win. It's just about your mindset, my beautiful souls. Do you know what I'm saying? All right. So that is the message this week, my beautiful souls. It's time to cleanse, declutter the soul. Awaken that inner child and continue your development. It's about redirection of the ego. It is about healing, yes, but what does healing involve for you as the individual, right? Because everyone is healing a different aspect of self, because everyone is slightly different when it comes to their deeds or their karma. That's what karma means, deeds. So we all live different lives. We all done different stuff, perform, great things. We all got talents as well that are hidden. This is another thing, my beautiful souls. If the Virgo energy is there, the Virgo energy wants that skill to be perfected and utilized. Plus, we just don't want to be a slave to our financial needs, or be trying to cover up our own vulnerability through trying to control every dynamic of our aspect, which means we rob ourselves of being able to tap back into that universal flow, tap back into the universe's abundance. You've lost your hope, my beautiful souls, when you do that and you fit into these bubbles where hope creates your own miracles. So miracles are not something that you're just waiting from the divine. You create your own miracles. You are the miracle creator, right? But again, this is down to your mindset. You understand? And your ability to see self, and not just, you just keep going and not know. This is identity shift. You are what? You hear me say all the way, it always comes back to this, because that energy of identity is, or when we're willing to change our identity or realign our ego, that represents a form of initiation. And this is where humanity finds their self, my beautiful souls. So don't forget to sing and dance, right? Enjoy sensuality. Don't use these things as means to cover up that there's an issue, but you can use them as means to replenish your energy, right, my beautiful souls. And again, what the sacred union is understanding that you are a creative, conscious being that has a physical vehicle, right? And you now need to know, do you want to be the driver, or do you want to allow your car to be on autopilot, to be self-driven? Because that's what's going on. Your car has the ability for you to drive, or it's also got its autopilot, its auto driving dynamic. And what's happened is there's a glitch. It's a virus has hit that system, and now it drives how the hell it wants to drive. Which is not conducive to where you want to go. So it's deciding your destination. It's getting you into crashes, right? It's becoming very dangerous. So we now need to switch off, right, that autopilot, right, and then realign ourselves and retrain ourselves as the drivers, my beautiful souls, of this vehicle. So we elevate our skill as the driver. This elevation is what they would call ascension or transcendence, or somebody having a spiritual divine awakening or kundalini rising. It just means that the driver has become way more aware and equipped. So when we're avoiding these crashes, boom. All right, my beautiful souls, until next week. You can catch me on TikTok also for Earth Speaks and for lives, my beautiful souls. And there is my book, The Living as Usa, which is coming out real soon in the next couple of weeks. So watch this space, my beautiful souls. If you want personal readings, my website is in the description. So hit me up, my beautiful souls. I will not approach you for readings, and you can't book readings with me other than my website, just to avoid anyone out here trying to scam. All right, my beautiful souls, kaboom.